This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, episode 332, Disenchanted, the pressures of peasant life.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the number one place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Hey there, animation addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
And Chelsea, if you could go to any magical fairy tale world, Disney or non-Disney, where would you go?
The first one that came to my mind was Anastasia.
Ooh, okay.
But,
so the real world.
In a good time. When she's
the not... other time, one of the other timelines where the Romanovs are not killed.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Just in that brief moment where everybody's happy in the Romanov family, at least.
Where would I go? There's so many good ones. First thing that comes to mind for me would be the world of Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, that works.
You know, it's a very, you got a big castle. It's very medieval. You know, you still got your Wicked Witch, Maleficent, you know, who's there, but you also have good fairies. And then you can go to your woodland cottage cabin when you need to. It's been isolated from what we see, but I just love the aesthetic of that one. I think, obviously, it's the Peral influence, but Belle's World is nice, too. It's a little bit more modern.
It's if you actually were able to go to the town that they used as their inspiration, that's a lovely town. I highly recommend.
So, speaking of magic and being enchanted by visiting places, we are doing a very fun, interesting film. One that we didn't initially do, but it's come back around. It's time. We are doing Disney's Disenchanted.
It is time.
Thank you, Rafiki.
Thank you.
This one is going to be fun because this is a Disney Plus release. We haven't really done too many of those, but I kind of am on I need to go back and watch some of the Disney Plus releases over the past few years. So I think that's going to be our theme for the next little bit. And we're going to try to stick on animated ones, but there's not really too many animated original ones in that vein. So we're going to do some of the remakes. Now, Enchanted is this hybrid film. And so it straddles both worlds. So it counts as animation. And of course, in this world of the Animation Addicts Podcast, we just do whatever we want. And so we're going to be doing the sequel, Disenchanted.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
All right, before we get started, let's give some basic information about this film. The director is Adam Shankman. The screenplay and story. So there are 4 different people associated with this. We will talk about the storied backstory history of the making of this film, but there's a reason why there's 4 people. So the story is by David Stern, David N. Weiss, Richard Lagavanès, and then officially the screenplay is by Bridget Hales. So, okay. Pause. We will put a pin in that. Why are there so many? Well, there's reasons. Now, it's based on characters by Bill Kelly, who I believe was the screenwriter of the first Enchanted, which came out in 2007. The production company is Walt Disney Pictures, Joseph M. Entertainment, Right Coast Productions, and it's distributed by Disney Plus the United States and then Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures International. The release date is November 18th, 2022, released exclusively on Disney Plus in the United States, and as a result, we have no box office information or budget information. So let's talk about this film. What on earth? Why did it take so long? So this film, they wanted to make a sequel from the get-go.
And I remember wanting this to be a sequel as soon as possible.
Yes.
And then after we got it, I realized, be careful what you wish for, which was the actual, theme of the movie as well.
I feel like this movie, on the movie poster, they have, if you're looking right here on the movie poster, it says, Disenchanted, happily, never after.
Oh.
I mean, whatever. It should have been be careful what you wish for, which I'm sure has been the tagline subtitle for so many other films that have come out over the years. But I mean, be careful what you wish for is much more, it's more appealing and interesting than happily never after. It's like, wait, what? Okay. So, but this movie was in development HE double toothpicks since early 2010. I mean, in early 2010 is when they started, talking about it. And just in the mid-aughts, is the aughts the proper term, or is the aughts the...
Aughts is before 10.
Okay. In the 2010s, it just languished forever, and, it wasn't able to go anywhere. Finally, 2017, it was announced that Adam signed on to reprise her role. Filming was going to start that summer. Obviously, that didn't happen, and so 2020, they said, yes, it's officially announced, and they're going to film in 2021, and we eventually got it in 2022. So it did happen, and they got back the majority of the principal cast. But the problem is, I was reading some of these quotes with James Marsden. The thing is, this was a sleeper hit, Enchanted.
Yeah.
It was, obviously, I was so pumped about this. Go back and listen to our Enchanted episode, and I'll tell you the story about how pumped I was and how I abandoned Chelsea. I was just too excited. I couldn't wait for it. I went and saw the first showing at 9 a.m. on the Friday morning that it was released. And
cried even.
And cried. I cried in the opening animated scenes because it'd been so long. It'd been 2 years. Or maybe it really had been. It'd been like 2 or 3 years since we'd had Disney animation 2D. It just felt like a coming back home. And so, of course, this was a movie that we wanted to have back, and they were constantly asked. Alan Menken in 2011 was asked back. He said, or he was asked about it, and he said, I've heard things, but nothing yet. I don't know much about what's happening with that. Honestly, I don't know what the studio wants to do next. I presume there'll be some future projects for me to work on. I love doing that. I really do. I'm not frustrated that it isn't one of them. At the moment, I have a lot of stage things happening, and I'm busy enough with that so I really don't need more on my plate. Alan, can you hide it a little more that you're not into this? He seems like this movie is not going anywhere. I don't really want to be involved. If they ever get their act together, sure. But in the meantime, I'm not losing sleep over the sequel. Yeah. Then the next quote that I liked, it was from James Marsden. He was asked in 2011, so this is 4 years after the first one came out. Well, March, really 3.5 at this point, but he says, I don't know. I think the clock is ticking on that one. Amy Adams and I are both saying, if there's going to be a sequel, we're not getting any younger, since we sort of play these ageless animated characters. Hopefully we do. That was something really special. I'd love to come back and do another. I've heard the same things you've heard. There's a script out there somewhere and there's talk of it, but I never really believe it until I see the script and we learn we're making the film. So I don't know. Too many eggs in that basket. It seems he understood the way that this happens in Hollywood, that projects come, projects go, things languish in this developmental, no-go zone for a long time. But people, the people want it. The people want what they want. They kept asking about it. And, you try to do your best to very, very wisely talk about it without just crapping on the studio. Mm-hmm. So eventually we got it. And wow. So you can tell in this film that it would have been more appropriate for this to be a few years later instead of 10. They said it as 10 years later, but by the time we get it, it's been 15 years. So the actors probably had maybe 14, 15 years between when they filmed it. And yeah, the moment has passed, I feel like, because they have this baby. Yeah. And it's been 10 years and they finally have a baby, which fertility, infertility, I get that happens, but this is a fairy tale. Come on. They really should have just gone all in and given her so many kids that she was really stressed out. The pressures.
Having 4 kids is what? You have one baby, babe.
Oh, I know, exactly. I have 4 kids and I'm starting to feel like, oh, this is heavy because there's too much going on, right? One is if I could go back to the joyous era when I had one baby. Yes, she has the teenager, but teenagers are really self-motivating at that point. I would go on, when I was on maternity leave, I'd go to a different park around the valley every single day and just walk around. This was during the Pokemon Go era, so I needed to go to these parks to catch them all. But it was the best. I just drove around town. I went on these long 2-hour walks. It was great. Okay, one baby was the best. And so she has one baby, and it's just the pressures of not palace life, the pressures of peasant life are too much for her.
Yes. And she has this feeling of things were just, nothing bad ever happened to me. I was raised by animals and everything was idyllic. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying nothing ever bad. Okay. But okay. So the plot summary is about 10 years have passed. They have a new baby and Morgan is a teenager. They decide to move to the suburbs, but everything goes wrong when Giselle decides to make a wish on a magic wishing wand without consulting the magic scroll. Really, it's the paperclip from Microsoft Word. And and then she ends up wishing that she wishes her life were a fairy tale again, which changes the entire world and takes all the magic from her previous home and just kills off all of the whole Andalasia. Honey, you're really not thinking this thing through. But I feel it changes the story so that her fairy tale is now the stepmother, which then dives into a whole bunch of the evil stepmother tropes. And okay, there's 2 tropes that they really hound on this one that I don't like. Nonetheless, I see where they are true. I just don't feel like they maybe executed them in a way that felt true.
There's a lot in this film where execution was a big miss. We will talk about it. So do you want to just jump into that or do you want to talk about characters? Okay. hop into your magic portal, which was one thing. I thought it was kind of like, there's a lot that's amiss here, but the magic portal to Angelasia, instead of it being just like a crummy pothole, or not pothole, is that what's called? Pothole cover?
Yeah.
In New York City, she has this very decorated wishing well that's just highlighted. It's beautiful and lovely. I mean, the whole the spin that they put on everything is that it wasn't what you expected. It was like this dingy pothole that was the secret entrance to the land.
Right.
Not something picturesque.
Yes. The main tropes that I just liked were like the teenager trope, which I cannot tell you how I dislike that teenager trope that they really put her in, because it just didn't feel real at all, like from a place of reality. You know, you'll have a parent come in like, oh, well, you've never raised a teenager and therefore, like, obviously you've never done that. I'm like, okay, I have lots of teenager nieces and nephews, and I absolutely understand that the teenager era is a weird era and they do weird things. But that doesn't mean that they don't like forget that this person came out of the pothole from another world and sings. Like it's like she doesn't, oh no, you're gonna sing again. And as if this is like a brand new thing. Like you just met this woman. Like, no, like she would have been, it was just an execution. She could have still had the teenager, ick, with also being like, yeah, well, that's just you know? And I don't know. It was just.
There's the angsty teenager trope, which is very common. It's normal. It's just a part of development for teenagers. But then there's the teenager parent dynamic trope that happens in animated movies. You have King Triton and Ariel. You have Merida and Queen Eleanor. And those are a little different because there is like a power dynamic struggle that's happening between the two. And they kind of tried to mix both of those, which is fine. I mean, why not throw an angsty teenager in there with their hormonal? They got all that going on. Why not while you're at it? And it just didn't work because they didn't put a lot into these characters beyond the surface. And so let's talk about, I know you're going to talk about the next trope, but I think we should talk about each one of the characters.
Okay.
Who they were, how dimensional they were or flat, and then what they could have done differently. I think a big thing about this review, at least in my mind, I feel like there were so many easy shifts that could have happened. So with Giselle, we have Giselle, who is this out-of-this-world princess character who, in the first one, it's just so clever because she brings the animated fantasy and absurdity from the animated world into the real world. And so she just keeps acting like an animated character, and it's so absurd by how she's behaving, you know, and she does the, let's clean the house, but instead of beautiful woodland creatures, it's a bunch of sewer rats and pigeons, you know, and so there's this fun play that they're putting on all of this, right? And
she works with what she has.
She grows and she turns into a more full-fledged, real-life human character by the end of it.
Yes.
And in this one, it's been 10 years, but she has reverted where it's almost like she's the Giselle from the first one.
Yes.
You would think that living in the real world would slowly change you. You would pick up on sarcasm. Like, come on, you know what sarcasm is. Like, is she really this emotionally stunted that she's not able to... At this point, I feel like she's really just stupid and not animated. You know what I'm saying? Because I thought that was a miss. I feel like Giselle needed to show that she had progressed over these past 10 years, and she'd really grown into a full-fledged human version of herself. She still had the little quirks that would come out here and there, but I really needed to see her all in on this new world because that's what she chose.
Yeah, and had this been made like literally like the next day, I would totally understand why you're not understanding sarcasm. Like,
yes.
This is still a continuation of where you were. You've grown, but you haven't heard everything, you know? But yeah, 10 years, it's like, I just feel like everybody is not grown up.
Yeah. So that's a problem. You know, she's still kind of doing her things. Then we have Patrick Dempsey, and this is where one of the big things, they are very flat as a couple. Yeah, which is such a shame. They're so great together in the first film. And then here, it's like, where's the dynamic happening? I don't believe it. I don't feel it. It's interesting because some of these characters, despite it being 15 years, appear kind of timeless.
Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey is one of those. He kind of looks the same to me. He just has a little bit more salt and pepper in his hair. But darn these men that don't age sometimes. It's like, ugh.
You literally could have just dyed his hair black and he'd be like, yeah, you're maybe a little older, but you look great, man.
Yeah, they should have done that to maybe sell it a little more, but they didn't care. Patrick Dempsey, they decide that, okay, like this isn't working anymore. Not the marriage, but this isn't working, that we need
more space.
We need more space. Let's go to the suburbs. So they go to the suburbs and they get this house. And I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but it seems like people are making it seem like this is a poor house.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it was just it's a fixer-upper, as though like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a couple things that need to be rebuilt better. Okay, but I mean, that's like every day here.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I got this vibe that this, like, it was so embarrassing that they bought this house, and I'm like, do they not understand that this is when this came out 2022, and buying a home like that, a fixer-upper, is like so many people's dream, whereas maybe 20, 30 years ago, that would not be the case.
Yeah.
But even then, it sort of felt very Pride and Prejudice, like the Bennetts, where they are poor, if you will, but
on a scale,
poverty is relative. And this is one of them. I'm like, I don't feel bad for you, poor, with this house that's just has this beautiful architecture and it's so ornate and fun colors and wallpaper. I'm like, keep it as is. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So he has to commute so hard.
That also bugged me too, because it's like, you have been spending every day on some kind of treadmill somewhere. Like, you've been going either maybe you were commuting via train, yes. Maybe you were commuting via subway, via taxi. Like, you commuted somehow, and just being like, okay, now it's just this one longer train to get to another train. Like, okay.
Or
whatever.
Yes, also, talking about the treadmill, I mean, because he had the time, he probably would go to a gym and work out before coming home. It's you're gone the same amount of time, my friend.
Right.
But the hilarious part is he commutes for one day. One day. That is his struggle that he has in this movie. Kill me now. It's just like, I don't know. I've never done the commuter train thing, but you got to sit there. You can read your book. You can do some of your work ahead of time. If you got to do it, it didn't seem that bad. The seats look nice.
I mean, I've been on those trains multiple times, and yeah, you do have, it takes a while. Yeah, but you're just sitting there. Like, what else? If you're going to be going somewhere, at least you have somebody else doing it, and now you can get a whole bunch of other things done. Honestly, I think it's the better situation, because then you don't have to actually like do work at home. Like, you can just do it on the way home and finish what you need, and then or just sit and vibe with yourself. I don't know. It is true that like all of this is like the peasants.
Yeah. It was funny, so he doesn't have a struggle. He doesn't have a moment where he misses out on the baby's first birthday or maybe misses a soccer game, or, maybe he was always there. He's like always a really present dad because of how he was able to be so close to the action. But there's no struggle with him other than like, wow, this is hard. I have to do this. So
right.
Now let's go to...
Well, even in the prelogue when Pip is like, oh, and their big penthouse apartment just felt like a 4-room walls, and now it's just they just weren't getting sleep. Oh no. Like the fact is that the dialogue, all of these things could have been twisted and changed to a thing that was relatable. Like you were saying, like I missed my kid's life because I was on a commuter train. I came home and I missed all these cool things that happened. I wish I were living close again. Or working closer to where I work, and have his struggle be a lot more connected to their life. And it goes into when
everyone's really siloed in what their problems are, and then their problem is very surface level.
Yeah,
and we don't dig into the surface and really solve the problem.
Right.
I guess we'll talk about what happens with him. Is that the spell happens? I wish for this fairy tale life. Be careful what you wish for, and then she ends up. It was just really funny. Everyone kind of becomes NPCs in a way where they don't remember and they don't have any agency. He just becomes what Edward was. He becomes this prince, this dashing guy who's going to be a hero and save the day, and he's fighting dragons.
Yeah.
But he's off doing his own thing. So if the whole problem was I'm away from the family, he's also, as this hero figure, away from the family, not involved in the action and helping to solve problems relating to the core family dynamic.
I mean, I feel like they were trying to go for the other trope of man's journey and needing to slay a dragon, needing to have something big and be the hero of your own story. And so he goes after and trying to find all these dragons, but the one dragon like kicks him out of his hole, and he's just like, he's not fighting an actual dragon or anymore. So they were trying to play into these things. It just didn't have a cohesive core, emotional core.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we have Morgan, who was a newcomer, Gabriella Baldacchino.
Very nice voice.
And I wasn't sure if she did the singing voice, but whoever did, very, very nice. I was impressed with her. If you wouldn't have known that she replaced the original Morgan actress, I don't think you would have known at all.
Yeah.
They got her spot on. I thought she was so good. You know, she had a similar look to her. Her singing was great. I thought she was one of the stars. And it made sense. Morgan had a big role in the first one.
Yeah.
And they enhance it and try to make her more of the star. And they really kind of were struggling. It's like, do we want to make Morgan the main character, or do we want to make Amy the main character?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where another part where I struggle, because she's this angsty teenager who's having a problem with everything. She says, hey, well, I want to go. Why? Dad's traveling. Why can't I just go with him and go to school in New York every day? Good point.
That is
really
a great point, yeah.
If your dads are going to go and you're willing to put forth the effort, they should have made it, I mean, it could have been like, what, her senior year? Like, This is my senior year, Dad. It's not that big. I'm willing to sacrifice whatever. Like, okay. So when she gets turned into the fairy tale world, or like the fairy tale real world, she kind of becomes an NPC for a big part of it as well, which I had a problem with this, is because everyone just flips like a switch and they turn into the version that Amy wants them. And then they really don't have any agency from that point on. They're not involved in the decision. They don't help, they're not able to realize what's happening and solve it. Eventually, Morgan, being this Disney princess character, she's kind of like the Belle, she's kind of like whoever, she's able to achieve the mission that's needed, but it's under the pretense of being fairy tale Morgan. Not real Morgan, who's having these issues with not being a real daughter of Andalasia, and having to overcome that issue with her mom, her godparents, and this insecurity that she has. That's not, I mean, there is at the very, very end, like, you are a true daughter of Andalasia because, like, we said so, and we need this to wrap up and solve the curse. But there's so much more they could have explored here. I think everyone should have changed, but like having her just turn into Belle, just wearing all these provincial clothes and going around and singing, it just felt like, oh, what's the point of this?
Yeah, they should have made it like she understood that there was a change, and now she's having to go against her angsty teenager. The fact that she was so annoyed that her mom would sing everything. Well, now she feels like, well, I guess now I have to sing because that actually feels right, as opposed to her just doing it without feeling any angst or any like change of mind. The thing that I don't like about the story is they put down all of these breadcrumbs that they never followed through on. And they didn't use the things that they set up as their reality at the beginning in the fairy tale part to continue it. It was everybody just turned into an NPC. It was like a different story altogether.
Yes.
Like the moment you change, it was different characters, different story. Everything is different. And also you don't know who is the main person, because even Giselle is turning into an NPC of the evil stepmother. Like
she's losing her agency in those moments.
And which also goes back to, okay, so is that what the fairy tale does to you? You lose all agency in how you do it. You just go along. Because if so, then you look at Idina Menzel's character. Well, she should not be as down to earth as she is. Like she should have gone into this, cryptic, very NPC character as well.
Idina was the most well-adjusted and normal of all of them.
Yeah.
She came from the real world. Now she's lived in Andalasia for 10 years, but it hasn't affected her. She hasn't turned into Giselle from the first movie. She's not over the top. She's just Nancy.
Right.
In Andalasia, and she's a foil to James Marsden, who also has turned into a version of himself. He enters the real world, and he's still so dumbfounded by everything he sees, and he's really aloof and kind of a airhead.
Yeah,
it's the Homer Simpson trope where he had a few funny moments and they got laughs, and so they kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. So future versions of Homer is totally different than what he is in the first few seasons, where he really is just normal and has some silly moments. But Edward is just this caricature of himself, and he's just constantly there for laughs. And I love James Marsden. I think he's so great. He is so I feel like this was a little bit after Sonic, and obviously he had done this role before and really went all in and had a fun time. But I think maybe he learned a little bit from, this is in my headcanon, that he learned a little bit from Jim Carrey and was able to use that in this performance. But he really is just the side character who's here for laughs. He's like Buzz in Toy Story 4. He used to have a really important part, but now you're just this character over here.
He used to be three-dimensional. Now he's just back to 2D.
Yeah, and he comes and visits, being the godparent. It's not, oh, we haven't seen you in 10 years. Wow, I can't believe the portal opened up again. No, it seems like the portal is kind of free-flowing.
It seems like they've been doing this back and forth.
Yes. So, I mean, you should have had some familiarity with the real world and how things work. So that's just a miss. I feel like they really liked what they had in the first movie, but they forgot where the characters ended up in the first movie. Yeah. And this was a continuation, not we're starting back again and telling a different story from that first point.
I think it really could have gone somewhere had they really made the characters flush out their problems within the fairy tale world. And you can have all of the other townsfolk do the same, like be the NPCs, but the core family being the same, like, Mom, what did you do to us? Like, what happened?
Well, yeah, they could have done that. I feel like they could have made the everyone in the fantasy world heightened versions of themselves. So we don't need all of the background characters to be, really important to the story. But let's say if there was a mean cheerleader girl who maybe in the real world she wasn't that mean. She was just had a bad day, or you had a bad interaction. She was kind of normal. But in this world, she's way over the top, right? Or I don't know. Everyone could have been heightened to what they were to make them realize, wow, the real world was actually really awesome. Yeah. And going with Maya Rudolph, they bring in Maya Rudolph as the evil queen character. Part of me, when I was watching this, I had no idea where this was going, and I thought she had some sort of magical powers. Like, I see her on the movie poster, and I thought, okay, she's gonna maybe be someone from Andalasia who's been living secretly undercover for the past.
That would have been fun.
That would have been cool, right? And then she's going to realize who Amy is, and that's a threat to her. This is kind of like a Once Upon a Time sort of premise, which is fine. Pull from it, Disney. You own it. Right. And she's able, because in that one, I can't remember the name of that town, but the Wicked Queen kind of controls everyone, and they live in this town, and has everyone under this spell. This could have been like a similar thing, which would have been really interesting. And then she has beef with Amy Adams. But even then, I don't think she was needed, because if you're going to turn Amy Adams into the wicked stepmother, you didn't need to one-up it with the Wicked Queen, who's even more of a force to deal with. This should have just stayed in the family.
Yeah.
All these characters are great. We don't need to introduce new ones. Just stick with what you got and really amp up each of these characters. I think Idina Menzel and Edward, I keep mixing, you know who I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. Nancy and Edward really needed to have more involvement. I think would have been a lot of fun, because I really like both of them, especially Edward. Edward didn't get to come along. It was just Nancy. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Because they wanted Nancy to sing.
They wanted her to sing, and they didn't want to pay him more than 2 days on set.
It's so romantic. But the thing is, you're already paying them. Yeah. I mean, it seems that they came in for the last few weeks of shooting when I was reading about it, but just pay them a little bit more and just involve everyone. Get rid of Maya. I'm sure she was a pretty penny, but or
unneeded though.
If they needed,
it's not like she brought in anybody. Oh, Maya Rudolph's in this. She's not an addition.
I know. I was like, wait, is this 2015? Was this script stamped from 2015 when she was in everything and she was the big thing? Because I'm like, why do we need the SNL's Kamala Harris here? I don't. It's so funny because they had these two little henchmen of her, and this was Rosaline and Ruby, and one of them was, and you put this in your notes too. It was so funny. We both were on the same wavelength. Felt like a Kristen Chenoweth knockoff.
Yes.
For some reason, they really wanted the blonde to be this Southern Belle kind of ditzy, really funny quirky person.
They wanted her to be like Kristen Chenoweth from what's the
Wicked.
one with, not from Wicked,
No.
but they were in an RV.
Oh, that family movie. Yeah.
I was like, I just remember her from that one, but it had a very similar vibe. Like, oh, honey, we just got this going on, you know? And I was just like, you want to be Kristen Chenoweth so much.
But here's the thing. If they wanted, I feel like they wanted Kristen Chenoweth to be Malvina, Maya Rudolph's character.
Yeah.
That would have been the cast.
That would have been
that.
fun.
And that would have, I mean, thankfully, Adina and Kristen get along so well. It's not like they have this bad blood between them. They really, truly are friends. And anytime they're on screen, it's really kind of like this fan favorite duo, which is really odd, but people love them. I feel like, this is me, headcanon again, not having done a lot of research into what happened here, but I feel like they maybe wanted her, and maybe Nancy could have had a bigger role interacting with the two. I don't know. It would have been funny to have Kristen as that character. Mm-hmm. And then just, you don't need the two henchmen.
I'm sure Amy would not have signed on for that, though. She's like, I'm not in a Wicked the Musical remake. I am in an Enchanted
Oh, get over
remake.
yourself, Amy. This is Stephen Schwartz writing the lyrics.
Did he really do this as well?
Yes. Okay, so I wanted to go back to the original.
Both of them. Why?
Okay, shall we talk about the music now that we're here?
Please. Yes.
Okay, music time.
I felt like every song was fluff. You had about 3 songs that had any kind of push to the story. Everything else was just kind of like, we're establishing that Amy, or that Giselle still sings, but it's not like a real song. Like, it's not something that's going to help anybody move the story along. And so you have the songs that I counted were the I Want song, which was like 40 minutes into the movie of Morgan's, but like, I don't care. And then you go on a little bit further. You have the Villain Off song, and that's a song between what would be who's the baddest villain, and then the third one is Nancy's song, which was obviously supposed to be intended to be the like showstopper of all the songs, but I just felt like I could not sing you a single one of those at all. I could not even tell you the melody of any of them.
Oh, one of the melodies very much reminded me of Spellbound. Do 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 do. That's all I remembered, and the only reason I know that is because I went to play it on the piano, because I'm like, why does this sound like Spellbound? But obviously, it's Alan Menken's stuff,
Alan
and
Menken.
they love to reuse their favorite chords.
Right, he goes back to the vault.
It was such a bummer, because they brought back Stephen Schwartz, Alan Menken for Enchanted, because they'd done other previous Disney musicals, animated musicals. And so they wanted this to feel real, like a classic Disney musical, the original. And then obviously they're going to bring him back. But it just felt, again, like that quote, even before this was greenlit, it's just like their heart wasn't in it. And what was the point of any of these songs? Each one of the original songs had a purpose to it. And I love the progression of the songs, where it starts very campy, over the top. And as Giselle moves into the real world and becomes more human, the songs take away a little bit. They're less campy, they're more realistic, until the final song where they're singing and dancing. It's kind of they're falling in love at the ball. She's not even singing anymore. Someone else is singing the song, showing that she has really moved out of this. And it's just the symbolism of that is really great.
Yeah.
And it's like we needed songs for the sake of songs, and hey, you're paying us, it's a gig, let's do it. There wasn't, because the script was so flat and one note, I don't think they really could do much with the songs to try to have it be fun and playful and tongue-in-cheek, because that wasn't really there.
They read the script and they're like, oh, great. Like, what are we even working with at this moment? Like, it's just a rehash of before, but like not even in a positive direction for any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the ending and it's like, okay, they live happily ever after. Don't go wishing on, don't wish for whatever ice cream you want to fill the platter. But it's just like, there's just no connection to growth at the end, other than, wasn't that a weird dream?
Oh, How disappointing is that at the end?
I
Like, it
know.
was all a dream. We don't even...
I know.
And only us two remember because we were the ones who had the magic wand. That I had an issue with the magic wand because the magic wand was just this... Well, two things. The baby I really had a problem with because the baby was just a conduit and a set piece.
Yes.
There was no purpose for the baby other than to say, time has passed, we have a baby, and now you feel like you're
We need
second
more
fiddle
space.
to the baby. But she doesn't... Even as the stepmom, she should have really shunned the stepdaughter, Morgan, in
really
light
didn't.
of the baby. All she does is just get some sitters for the baby. So she's just like a traditional, 17th century, mom. Where it's like you hire someone else to watch your kids.
Right.
Like, okay, fine. But you really should have seen that power dynamic between the true-born children versus the step-children. Because that is a real thing. The step-parent child dynamic is very, very real. And there could have been a lot that really could have been explored there in real life. Not this over-the-top Disney way, which obviously is, it is what it is. But they could have really explored that a lot more. And they just couldn't go there. They couldn't go anywhere with this because it was just so silly and shallow.
I think they just didn't know how to explore that too, because other than they're like, well, we have to bring in all the tropes. That's what the trope. We're just talking about all the tropeiest tropes.
So what was your issue with the wicked stepmother trope? That was the other one that you wanted to talk about.
This is a trope for a reason because it's an amplified in stories to make a point. And I feel like, as you were saying, that there is a dynamic there that is difficult for a person coming into a situation that is not innately their own. So it is going to be difficult. And I've seen it. I know it. Even like some of my friends who have gone in and married somebody who was divorced or widowed, and they they're like, yeah, I love my husband. I love his kids, but there's no love lost if I were not to show up tomorrow. They're just like, you. Okay. And it's, that's hard. Like for sure, especially as the mom or the, Insta mom who's coming in now, not feeling a bit of an outcast yourself. And so there is once again a power dynamic, especially with the teenager situation. You could have done that. But the thing is, like, she came in when the girl was like 5 or 6 or like 7. How old was she?
Yeah, something around that range.
They're trying to say 10 years later, okay, she's like 15, 16, right? And like when you're coming in that young, and Morgan never showed any kind of distrust or dislike. She did show it for Nancy because Nancy wasn't particularly like real to her.
Yeah.
Giselle was just so not real that she like gravitated to her even more because it was
Giselle
the opposite.
Treated her
of
like a real
dad.
person and friend, and they were able to bond on kind of these outsiders. Whereas we could see how Nancy was going to become the traditional wicked stepmother. Not wicked, but the stepmother where you're not mine. I'm just marrying your husband.
Exactly.
Where
and it was
Giselle was going to truly take her in as one of her own, and did.
Yeah. And it was more of a friendship, and she looked up to her so much. And like, you could have gone back and could have talked about that of like things have changed because now there's another daughter. I'm no longer your daughter. I can see that they could have done something like that, but instead, I'm a teenager and I don't like it. It's just like, it was so surface level that I wanted so much more. And they're going with these tropes, and it was just 2D. Like it was very surface level, and that was it. So I love that we were both on the same page as far as noticing the shallow feeling that this story was. And it's like you could have there were so many people that were involved in this story, and this is what you end up with. Like you had 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, you could have done something like that.
It just always shocks me how, having seen, obviously, your Monday morning quarterbacking this one, and there's the problems are so obvious. But it seems like by reading the script, some of these would be kind of obvious. You could imagine it. I don't understand why they don't necessarily workshop these more. I don't know how it works, but how it's so obvious, like change this, and this, and you would have had a better story. Why don't they do this? Why doesn't this happen? Like, why isn't there more of a group? I guess you don't want a group because you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, but
no.
It's just shocking to me that
a checklist though.
Yeah,
like if you're putting down
just
these
have a super
thoughts,
fan read through it. You know, like an inner circle of super fans who you trust. You know, they've given great critiques over the years, and you know, just
you're talking about us. Why didn't they come to us?
Some other folk, yeah. Just like, hey, can you just do a one pass? We'll just pay you a consulting fee and tell us what's working, what's not working. How can we fix this? But then maybe when you do that, you have to give writing credits. I don't know.
I think you could just set it as a consultant thing in the contract. Like you will not receive writing credits. You will not do these things. It all comes down to a contract negotiation in this.
Well, then eventually you want a piece of the pie. I'm helping you fix all of these movies that are making you billions of dollars that they would be stinkers otherwise, because I have the gold nuggets, the golden key. You build the foundation and I just tweak it. But I don't know. Anyways.
I mean, the thing is, like, when Pixar had like the brain trust, they called it that, and none of the other people got those writing credits. So it's not impossible for them to just like, okay, if the film does super well, then you do put it in the contract that it will get more. If it goes above a certain level, then yes, you get a percentage of something of the above that level or something. Like, but that just comes down to contract negotiation. Anyway, point is, like,
negotiation. What is that song? No, it's from Fox and the Hound. I think it's the wrong word, but
there are enough breadcrumbs at the beginning to lay down. And going back to the fairy tale of explanation of this, Hansel and Gretel, they're laying down breadcrumbs, trying to. You have to somehow come back with those breadcrumbs, and they just didn't. And I don't think that that's difficult in the writing situation of being like, okay, I said this. Do I ever come back and pay that off? Is there ever a payoff for that? And it was just like nobody went back to say that this was a payoff. And does anybody care? Do I care about this person now? So, yeah, I feel like this was a missed opportunity. And like I said, be careful what you wish for. I wanted this so bad 15 years ago. And
one thing
it just came down to this.
That was really odd to me was Pip's voice. They replaced him. Griffin Newman was the new guy. And it is painfully obvious that it is not the original Pip. I think the original Pip, was it actually the director? Was it Kevin Lima?
Might have been.
Wait, who was it? While Enchanted director Kevin Lima voices Pip in the real world, when he's making the squeaks, Jeff Bennett. So I wonder why he's an American voice actor. I don't know why they didn't did he die? No, he's still around. So there is no reason.
He was ticked off, I'm sure, too.
What on earth? Because whoever they got, it was terrible. Like, just, he's a voice actor. Hello, this is his gig. Just give him his role. So he really bothered me because as he being the narrator, it was like, okay. And so they have Pip being the narrator, and it's odd to me because it's clear that they really wanted to tie in the animation elements that we have from the original, and they want the storybook opening and closing. This is the part of the story we never told you. You know, the 7-year itch or the rough patch of the marriage. You know, whatever.
Right.
We'll sweep that under the rug and pretend it didn't happen, children. Which, okay. So this is the context to tell us the story. Totally not needed. I don't need to know that this is a story that's been encapsulated in a storybook that Pip is now telling his children, because it's a crappy story. That's one of those stories you buy, you think, oh, kids are going to love it. And then they read it once and they never want to see it, hear it again. And eventually 5 years later, you're like, this is in the donate pile. Yep. That's what this would be. The donate pile. And okay, so let's talk about the animation before we wrap up. So the animation, the original animation, obviously Disney had closed their 2D animation studio. So they hired James Baxter Animation to do these sequences, and they are really good. They're phenomenal. And Giselle and Edward, they look a little funky because they're trying to base them off the real character, the real life people as much as possible. So they have a slightly different look than the traditional Disney Glen Keane that we're used to. That's fine. It's a stylistic choice. I'm used to it. But now they're bringing this back. James Baxter, for some reason, I don't know if he's still around. I'm not sure if his studio's still up and running, but they hired a studio. So they hired a Canadian animation studio called Tonic DNA, and they used Toon Boom Harmony, which is a 2D software. So these weren't obviously done in 2D, and this is a studio that's able to do it. It looks fine, but there's times where I'm like when the animals look great.
Magic.
Yeah, the animals look great and fine. The people look slightly off. And one thing that really bothered me is they're reading through the storybook at the very beginning, and they just take they just take screen caps of the original film for each one of this, because he's kind of getting you back up to speed. In case you've never seen Enchanted, here's what's happened, right?
Right.
And then we go into this period, like post-Enchanted, and it doesn't match. I'm like, ugh. For those ones, you had to have gotten it perfectly spot on. Like the rendering looked different, the coloring, the shading, like it felt like a different artist. And that really bothered me, that the continuity was not there. Even it wasn't an animation. Like, I'm asking you to just create a still for the storybook.
Yeah.
Then when we move into the animation,
in the same style.
In the same, yeah. I don't think that would have been that hard, but apparently it was. So anyways, I didn't love the animation
so much on this.
It was really bothering me. They tried to do this multiplane effect. It's not great because you can tell that it is just computer. It's computer. Everything's flying by, whizzing by. Everything's too pretty. It doesn't have the hand-drawn feel that we're used to, which has a little grittiness, and it's not so perfect. It doesn't, the smoothness and transition isn't there. So it's unfortunate, because technology's progressed so much in a weird way that the animated sequences felt off to me.
Now it's worse.
Yeah.
It's weird. But yeah, it feels like that's part of, I mean, this is just a wholly different topic to talk about, but just, yeah, the progression of technology has made it so people aren't as good at things. Like, we're not as talented we don't have, you haven't put in those 10,000 hours to really make yourself perfect, as opposed to just being like leaning into something else and be like, I'll fix it in post. And it's just not great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to look up James Baxter real quick. I know he had a studio. I remember I used to go look up his website, but he was the animator on Once Upon a Studio, which they brought in a lot of people for that. He did 2D development for Vivo, animator on Centaur World, so he's still animating. Like, that's his love. That's what he's been doing. Mary Poppins Returns, he was one of the animators on that. His studio, he closed his studio in 2008. So obviously it's hard to run a studio. It's hard to run a business. He had done this sequence in Enchanted. He also did the opening credits for Kung Fu Panda. And those ones really stand out to me, both of these. It's just such a shame, because he's quite good. It's a shame that they couldn't have said, okay, we want James Baxter back on this at this studio that we're hiring for him to be like the lead for this. Maybe the studio didn't appreciate bringing that. I don't know. I'm not in charge of this. If I were to do it, this is how I would have done it. Right. Even Glenn Keane has a studio.
Yeah.
Insert Marge growl, which I do all the time now. I totally relate to Marge Simpson. As a parent now, I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense. Marge is me. I am Marge. Marge is just doing her best, and everyone else has ruined things around her. All right. So
on that happy note,
because I do have to run off. Apparently, the children where they're at, they have thrown up, and my mom is saying, "When are you coming to pick them up?" Because she's watching my other nephew, and the other nephew threw up. My kids are not sleeping, so my kids are kind of in the way because she now has to clean up throw up. So, what would you rate this? Oh, I have so many notes. What on earth? 2 pages. I didn't even talk about them.
We just had so many rants. Like, what is going on?
I'm gonna just throw some random notes in the the bloopers.
Okay. I would give this 2.5 stars. I feel like they did a lot, but not enough to 2 stars. 2 stars. Not enough to make me feel like I liked it.
All right. I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. It has moments that I like. There's moments where I'm like kind of getting into it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then there's not. And I'm let down. And then you sit and you think about this. You're like, why isn't it going anywhere? Why are the characters turning into NPCs? It's for the sake of it. Why not? Why shouldn't they? And it's just so frustrating. Obviously, with this having changed hands so much, how much time had progressed between the original one and this one. The Enchanted was such a special film. It was done by Kevin Lima, who did a Goofy movie. So of course, like, yay, we love him. It's great. So many amazing people. Just when the magic isn't there, the magic isn't there. And there's no amount of magic wand that can really make this work. And leaving you with that, the magic wand, what on earth were those two thinking? Giving a baby this magic wand that has the ability to steal the powers from your world. I don't think they were thinking that through. And it just didn't make sense. They wanted a magic wand for the sake of having a magic wand. But in the world that we've been with, there weren't really magic wands. I mean, Edward isn't magic. Nancy isn't magic. It just seemed kind of weird that they had access to this magic wand that they were going to just, here you go. I don't know. It was strange.
It just also seemed like a Harry Potter ending.
Yeah, I would have wanted to see Nancy maybe play more of a godmother or a fairy godmother role if they were going to kind of do this Cinderella, sub story for Morgan. It would have been cool to have her maybe get sent to the animated world for a second and have Nancy do that. I there's so much they could have fixed. And part of me thought maybe they were going to have Giselle be so fed up with the real world, she's going to go into the animated world and realize, oh, this is so much better. I miss this. This is awesome. And really want to go back home and live there. But then she would have to go through some character growth and arc happening in the real world or in that world, realizing, no, I chose this for a reason. Like you made your choice sort of thing. However, that revolves around the flip of it's an inversion of the original movie, which would have been interesting, but having 60-70% of your film in the animated world would have been very costly. And that's not what they were going for here. I'm sure they spent so much money on this, but they didn't want to spend that much money.
Right.
So
they got him there, but we didn't want to put money into anything else. Yeah. There was a question that I had. It's like, there were so many things that were that they tried, but didn't just like what I said at the beginning, the execution and what makes the difference. This is an actual question, for the road. Like, what makes the difference between something like this, which is subpar, to something that is from before, which was like a real story?
Send us a voicemail. What do you think is the magic key, the magic wand from good to great? All right, that's what we have for this episode of the Animation Addicts Podcast. Let us know your thoughts by going to rotoscopers.com/322. Send us a voicemail. We are doing our voicemail episode coming up. We're giving you guys a little bit more time to send in voicemails. We have a few coming in and we want more. So if there's certain Disney Plus shows that you want us to review, or maybe you want to do a mini review on those, let us know. Send your thoughts. We can talk about Disney Plus. We can talk about the state of animation. It's your mailbag. So send them in. Go to rotoscopers.com/voicemails or give us a call at 406-646-6575. Until next time, and we're going to have a mystery episode doing some sort of Disney Plus film.
Well, if you want to know what movie we're doing, join the mailing list. I will tell you in the mailing list a couple days prior.
Until next time, we are the Rotoscopers.
Okay.
The Twilight bark.
Yes. I don't know how to turn the furbo off, but it'll turn off on its own. Basically, anytime the dog barks, like it tries to calm them down by playing soothing music. But it's pretty quick. Oh, honey, it's okay. So that was my neighbor, and they're having a football party for the Super Bowl. And I guess I have been brought in to help arrange it as well. So,
I thought you were getting an invite to the ball.
No, I'm helping to arrange the football game.
Yes, you're the help.
Yes. All right, jumping in.
Good times. Okay, as bloopers, here are some random talking points that I didn't get to talk about in the film, or in our recording session. A lot of these are just quotes from the movie that I thought were really funny. It was, hey, you're the girl from New York. It reminded me of Twilight. Hey, you're Bella. You're new here. When she walks up. It's like, why is in these small
What's
towns...
up, Arizona?
Yeah, exactly. In these small towns, they instantly know the new girl and just start referring to them as like that person. There was the quote, oh, she's a magic queen. Those are always fun. I really enjoyed Amy Adams as Giselle. Her Giselle voice is just so fun. It was fun to go back to her, to have this, but at the same time, Giselle felt like she outgrew this like really cutesy sort of thing. Like I feel like she should have laid off it a little bit, still have it here and there, but I really enjoyed her wicked stepmother voice. I thought that was really neat, really great. She was able to turn on a dime. There's one scene where she's switching back and forth like Gollum, and that was awesome. I thought that was great acting on her part. Let's Let's see. Sugar dates and beans, sugar dates and pistachios. That was a background quote, which I very much appreciated. And we had the Jafar problem in this movie where, I don't just want to be the wicked stepmother. I want to be the wicked queen. Where each wish progressively gets her in more and more trouble. I liked that. And yeah, so there we go. I thought jewel tones on Amy Adams were fantastic. They did so much for her. I thought it was interesting they had her hair a deeper shade of red than sort of the strawberry blonde that we have in the first movie. I like the darker red on her, but then when I was going back and watching some clips of Enchanted, I was like, but I miss that classic Giselle strawberry blonde too.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah. So there we go. I have so many more notes, but that's all. We could have gone a lot longer on that, but
yeah,
I gotta go.
I think an hour is good.
Alrighty. Well, thanks so much. I will end this. I'll send these this way, and off we go. Bye.
Off we go. Bye.
You've been listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag Animation Addicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.